Hello YouTubers out there, this is Jerry at the Movies. Today's discussion will be on the controversial endings of Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho and Martin Scorsese's The Departed. Reason I'm discussing these two particular endings is because in many ways they're not so dissimilar from each other in hindsight, and they've created some furor among fans and critics. Obviously, they're two different films, but their endings shift and complicate what might perceive to be studio-imposed finalities into something more obscure, more ambiguous, and more despairing. Now, Hitchcock's Psycho ends with a psychiatrist, played by Simon Oakland, telling the family of the slain Marion Crane, played by Janet Leigh, that Norman Bates was not exactly a transvestite, but a man who wore women's clothing to become his mother. He also interjects that Norman is his mother. Obviously, this psychoanalytic speech is silly and technically spurious. I sense that it was put in there as Hitchcock's and writer Joseph Stefano's joke on the audience, who typically need everything wrapped up into a tidy ending that puts closure on anything, and in particular, in this case, Norman Bates' insanity. It also gives the audience comfort that such a killer can be categorized and explained away so that we know better than to enter a desolate motel in the middle of nowhere where a strange, childlike, lonely, and androgynous motel owner exists eating candy. But Hitchcock didn't quite end it there with that psychoanalytic interpretation from the psychiatrist. And actually, the film ends with Norman in his cell, staring away at the walls while Mother narrates. You see a housefly appears on his hand, and Mother makes it clear she will not harm that fly, sensing that an eventual release from the nut house will be forthwith, because Norman is insane. Naturally, this was the setup for the opening of Psycho 2, the 1983 sequel. Norman looks up at the audience, and we have a superimposition of his smiling face with his mother's skull. It's a very chilling face, a chilling smile, and Marion Crane's car being dragged from the swamp. All of this is kind of superimposed all together, so you have like three different superimpositions. And this adds a sense of discomfort and proves Norman isn't exactly insane. He knows what he is doing and thinking, at least that's the implication. He is aware Mother is a distinct personality, and he knows he is not Mother. So maybe we can keep fooling the psychiatric community, is what I think Norman is thinking. And this is the ending that a lot of critics, including Roger Ebert, ignore or don't acknowledge. Sometimes evil can't be explained away with a stuffy psychoanalytic speech, hence the chilling last scene. Now, Martin Scorsese's The Departed, which, as all of you know, won the Oscars in 2006 for Best Picture, Best Director, and Screenplay and Editing. The film has a fatalistic finish, where the presumed bad guy of the film, Colin Sullivan, the duplicitous villain, with a superbly controlled performance by Matt Damon. He is a cop who has ties to the slowly derailing Boston mob boss Frank Costello, played by Jack Nicholson. And at the end of the picture, Colin is executed at point-blank range by another cop, the ferocious Dignam, played by Mark Wahlberg. Now, most would concede that this very Americanized ending was appropriate. It actually differs from its source, which is Andrew Lau's Infernal Affairs, of which The Departed is a remake of. And after all, the dirty, corrupt Colin had it coming. And Scorsese could have ended it there, but he took it one step further. When we pan up from his body in a pool of blood, we see a rat running along a windowsill, and the shot rests on the Massachusetts State House, a place which Colin is enamored of. Now, this shot is foreshadowed earlier by Costello, who's plaguing the undercover cop Billy, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, with questions, and he makes rat-like faces and draws rats running rampant around the, you guessed it, Massachusetts State House. This is what Costello does earlier in the picture. So the implication being that the rats, the dirty cops, will continue to run and control everything. Now, I mentioned the ending is still fatalistic because without the rat, I still had sympathy for Cullen, no matter how rotten a person he is. He even forces his live-in girlfriend not to hang pictures of her as a kid as an example of a man not comfortable with identity or sentimentality. And I felt sympathy because he grew up possibly molested by priests as an altar boy, at least it's implied, and he had to succumb to Costello's control rather early on. Now, Costello expresses hate towards everyone, especially priests, with which he makes consistent references to with sexual and violent analogies. Now, Cullen wants to get away from the city life, as expressed to the girlfriend Madeline, played by Vera Farmiga, in a bedroom conversation, but he is embroiled in his loyalty to Costello. And Costello betrays Cullen when he admits he is an FBI informant. As some of you know, they caught the real guy just recently, Whitey Bulger, of whom he was the basis for the Costello character. Now, Cullen is a man without shame, remorse, or identity. He was shaped and lured into a criminal life and environment that Costello helped nurture. So Scorsese could have ended with the assassination of Cullen and showed us the courthouse. The rat adds an extra dimension and a touch of black humor, creating a fused symbol of corruption never dying. Now, Scorsese and Hitchcock have fundamental similarities in the films they've made. Their films are strewn with Catholic guilt, immorality, sexual inadequacy or limitation, occasionally graphic violence, a virtuoso display of camera moves, not to mention editing, and anti-heroes who refuse to justify themselves. It's probably more true of Scorsese than Hitchcock, but in general, that's what you have. Now, Psycho and The Departed also play the audience like a piano, showcasing an element of surprise and unexpectedness in fashioning a genre attempt to fit their respective personalities. Scorsese already had tried one genre, the thriller genre, with Cape Fear back in 1991, which was itself, of course, a remake. Seemingly obligatory, tidy endings, indeed, are more complicated than expected when it comes to Hitch or Scorsese. And that's all I got to say on that. And this is Jerry the Movies, signing off.